All right, welcome to the very first ever totally original podcast on Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere series. Today, and for the first several episodes of the foreseeable future, we're going to be focusing on The Rhythm of War, which, if you're a fan of the series, you know is the fourth book. If you did not know that, you might want to go back and read those. We will eventually get to them, but we wanted to start from where the series is at currently and move back from there.
Trying to stay relevant.
Yeah. So, Lars, I had a really good bit for the beginning of this.
Yeah, all right. Hit me with it.
I will in a bit.
All right.
All right. Okay.
God. Oh.
This is going to be like 6 chapters from the book. The first 6 chapters. We might edit that down later on, change it to 10 chapters per podcast or less, depending on how this one goes. But how this is going to work, we are going to start with a recap. And we're going to basically explain the summary of those 6 chapters, or the prologue in the first 6 chapters. And then we're going to talk about our feelings.
Talk about our feelings, guys.
Yes, and it's going to be a really heartfelt session. After that, we are going to start getting into the spoilers. So, if you have read only up to chapter 6, you are completely safe to watch. And then we will tell you when we're getting into the spoilers, and then you just need to leave. You need to get on out of here.
We'll do a nice big spoiler warning or something. So
yeah, you can't miss it. So after that, we are going to be talking about spoilers for the rest of this book and for the rest of the Cosmere as well. Okay,
let's do it.
All right. So, you want to start us off with the prologue? Oh, real quick. By the way, I know you guys are probably seeing my video. It's kind of shitty right now. I got this webcam and it's got this weird halo effect on it. I don't know if you can see that. And there's right here, there's this nasty little smudge that's, I think, on the inside of the lens, but I'm getting a new one for next time. So anyways, go ahead and start us off.
All right. We start off with a Navani perspective for all you Navani fans out there. It starts 7 years before the main story, during the night of the Parshendi treaty signing and Gavilar's assassination. Navani's kind of rushing around trying to get things ready for the big feast. She runs into Elikar's wife, who is talking to an Ardent that's famous for making fabrials. Navani's all excited because he's there, but she didn't really get a chance to talk to him. Gavilar is in a meeting with the Sons of Honor, kind of shunning his party guests, but they're talking about bringing something back from Braze, and him and Navani, he catches Navani kind of peeping in on the meeting, and they get into a fight because Gavilar isn't helping her with the feast and stuff, and he's really pushing for Yasna to get married to Meridas Amaram.
He says, she will marry Amaram.
Yeah, he gets real fatherly there. But yeah, Amaram's a great guy. Everybody knows how stand up that guy is. So
right,
don't know why she's opposed to it. But anyways, but yeah, in their fight, Gavilar straight up tells Navani that she's worthless and that everything she's done has been because of someone else. And she kind of agrees to it, but she takes it. She stabs it back at him a little, good little back and forth. But then Navani takes this little black sphere from him, and it's described as like kind of a violet light. It's kind of weird. It doesn't look like stormlight. So that might come into play later in the book. This Sons of Honor meeting that Gavilar's having includes the Herald Nail, the leader of the Skybreakers. Excuse me. And they're talking about a box that allows traveling to and from Braze, something that they say was only possible a few years ago. So I don't know if that'll have something to do later in the book, but sounds interesting. And then Navani, a little later, hears of Gavilar's assassination from an Ardent. And when she gets to the body, she searches him for that little black sphere she saw him holding, but it's not there. It just disappears. We don't know what happened to it.
Right. And we know that from the previous books that it wasn't, I don't believe it was one of the things that he gave Szeth. So
I don't remember that. No, I don't think so.
So someone else must have taken it.
Yeah, something happened to it. It wasn't on him. So but yeah, that's pretty much the prologue.
All right. So then we get into chapter 1, and for the first few chapters, it's there's the intros before the chapters. Usually a quote from somebody. In the previous books, there was the quotes from Wit talking to someone else in the Cosmere. And in this book, it is about, it's the perspective of Navani talking to the coalition of monarchs, kind of giving a lecture about Spren and Fabrials. And she's talking about something that Gavilar said in a previous book, that in order to capture a Spren, you have to give it something that they want. So this chapter begins from Lyran's perspective. They are in Hearthstone in the current day, and the Singers have taken over. Liran and Laurel and the Lord, what's his name? Do you remember his name? I always want to say Roshan. No,
Roshone.
Yes, Roshone. They are all plotting to save this Herdazian general. So there's been a time skip between book 3 and book 4. It seems like about a year has passed.
Yeah, I think close to a year. They say it's been a year since the first ever storm came. So
right, yeah. So maybe a little bit less than that since the Battle of Thaylen Hills or Thaylen Fields.
Pretty close to a year, though. Yeah,
something around there. So, anyways, they are in current day Hearthstone, and the Singers have actually taken over Hearthstone. Seemed inevitable, like they had already taken over Cap Kholinar. And they've also apparently moved into Herdaz. So Liran, Roshone, and Laurel are all trying to save this Herdazian general named the Mink, who successfully fought the Singers, even though he didn't have any radiance or anything like that in Herdaz. But he's escaping through Alethkar, and they are trying to link him up with Kaladin and the rest of the Radiants. So Fused has come to town as Liran puts the Mink into like a litter and is trying to, nonchalantly walk him by. And he thinks at first that the Fuse is looking for the Mink, but it turns out he's actually looking for Kaladin. And then we have a perspective change, and Kaladin reveals himself as being one of the refugees there. He had like a hood over his face, and he pulls it off and, super dramatically starts to fight with this new type of Fused.
Yeah. Inhales Stormlight, comes this glowing beacon. Yeah. Real dramatic. Total Cal move.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, you're either just grunting and scowling at the ground, or you're just... But anyways, he mentions that, he's fought Fused in the past that had the powers of Windrunners and Elsecallers. Actually, I think we saw an Elsecaller in book 3 that stole the King's Ruby. The ruby from Thalena. What was that called? The King's Ruby, something like that?
Were those Elsecaller? I thought it was a kind of like a Lightweaver. Like he had a...
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say Elsecaller? I meant Lightweaver. Yeah.
Lightweaver. Yeah.
So, Lightweavers. But this appears to be he likens it to the El Scholars. That's why I got
this
those
one's
mixed
the
up.
El Scholar. Yeah.
He can turn himself into like a ribbon of light and switches between bodies, and apparently can do it multiple times. So Kaladin fights it in the air and kills these bodies a few times and realizes that this fused has to go back after every 3 times he dies and recharge his void light. And he ends up beating this guy for the 3rd time, and he has to go back again. But he realizes that this fused is no longer going to chase him because he speeds up ahead of him and he goes back to Hearthstone. So Cal has to chase him back down to Hearthstone. So then we get another perspective shift, and it's Shallan this time. And she is hoping to be kidnapped by the Sons of Honor. She and her Lightweavers have been like infiltrating them. She's been acting as this one woman. She actually paid a woman off to like go into hiding, and she took over her identity. And she had found out that like the House of Sadeas was somehow a part of them, and so she's been trying to infiltrate that house and talk to ELA and that kind of stuff, and get kidnapped by them. And she's like waxing in about how she hasn't been kidnapped yet, and she starts to get woozy and realizes that something in her drink was drugged, and so she gets all excited. And yeah, there's like one point in there where she's still the 3 personalities: Vale, Radiant, and Shallan. And Vale asks her if she'd like to remember some things, which is maybe hinting at something. Even though she remembered killing her father in book 2 and her mother in book 3, maybe there's something else that she's not dealt with yet. Vale asks her if she wants to go ahead and face it, and Shallan retreats back into herself.
Yep.
And then, we get to chapter 3.
Then we get to, chapter 3. Chapter 3, let's see, it's a very detailed description you got there. All right, chapter 3 is when Navani and Dalinar show up in Navani's fancy new flying machine. It's essentially like a blimp. Navani's invented the blimp for Roshar.
They kind of describe it as like just basically a giant plank.
Just like a big. I imagine it as kind of like just a big floating rectangle, coming
basically.
in.
I mean, it's kind of like that the platform that they were testing out in at the end of book 2 when they were fighting.
It's just a super upscaled version. But I akin it to something like a blimp. It's not very fast, but it does move through the air.
Right.
It's like a blimp. But anyways, so they show up, and their plan is to take everybody from Hearthstone to back to the tower, because Cal's dad won't leave without all the people. He won't abandon them. Cal has come up with an ingenious plan to finally get his family away from danger by just taking the whole fucking village with them. They meet Lirin and the Mink. Kaladin goes to meet with the Mink at first, but the Mink has mysteriously vanished, and then I think a couple lines later, maybe a couple paragraphs later, he's up on the ship talking to Navani and Dalinar. He just snuck his way on there, so he's a real sneaky, crafty guy. I think I like him.
He pulled the old when you're sneaking out as a kid and you leave like your pillows underneath your covers in the bed. So your mom walks in and like, oh, he's sleeping.
Yeah, even his own like personal guard didn't even know where he'd gone. He pulled a fast one on him. They're kind of showing them the ship, and Dalinar suggests that Lirin go down and kind of check out the amenities that it has, to kind of help get the townspeople settled. So he goes there, and the Mink starts talking to Dalinar, and he proposes that if Dalinar will help him save the rest of his troops, who he has kind of scattered between here and Herdaz, that if he helps rescue them, then he'll help Dalinar fight. He'll fight on Dalinar's side. He'll help fight the fused with him. So yeah, Dalinar agrees. Funnily, that kind of annoys Navani that she wasn't even like consulted on that, because she considers it her ship, and she's kind of perturbed, which I found a little funny. Got a little chuckle out of it.
Well, since you said one of your feelings, I'm gonna say one of my feelings now too. Okay, okay with you? Okay, because I know we're not in that section yet, but
sorry,
no, you're good. I wanted to say it anyways before I forgot. My favorite part of that chapter is at the beginning. Navani is like leaning over the side of the platform, and like one of her minders tells her, like, "Oh, Navani, you have to get back. You can't stay like that.
Shouldn't be
like,
leaning
just
over the rail,
nagging on her." And then it just like Navani just leans over a little bit further. Anyways, she's like, I should be better after like 50 something years of life, but I just can't help myself.
yeah, that was a good part.
All right, so now we're on to chapter 4, and this chapter focuses on Shallan, and she gets in to speak with the Sons of Honor. Her, Radiant, and Veil, they all take turns into tricking these people, because she had been drugged before, and now she is sort of being initiated into this group. And they're all tricking him, or at least mostly Shallan and Veil are tricking them into letting her become a part of their society. She notes that these people seem overly like gaudy and naive, commenting on the fact that they're all wearing the same kind of formal wear that has these arcane symbols on them, and she's wondering like, what crafts person did they go to make these? Like, what did you tell them this was for? And these people like are testing her, and they use some device on her to try to see if she's a light weaver or not. And it's actually a device that Shallan actually sold to them in the past by getting one of her light weavers and using it on them and making them turn back. And so he gets a kick out of that too. And so they believe her now. They believe that she's not a light weaver, that she's actually on their side. And so Shallan's wanting to know where Ialai is, because again, Alsatius apparently has taken over control of the Sons of Honor. Now, I don't think in the first 3 books it was ever clear that Sadeas was a part of the Sons of Honor, was it? Like, do you remember that?
I don't specifically remember. I believe in book 3, I think they touched on the fact that Amaram was associated with them. I believe somebody like either mentioned his name or something like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't think it was ever specifically stated that the Sadeases were in on it. But I guess it kind of implied it, I guess, since he was, kind of in charge of their house in book 3.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it ever specifically stated. I could just be blanking though.
Well, regardless, Ialai is now apparently at the head of the Sons of Honor. Yep. And Shallan finds out that Ialai is not actually there at the moment. And so she's trying to find out where they are, but they're kind of, putting off her questions when she asks, and they reveal that the Sons of Honor actually have a mole near Dalinar. And so Shallan, Veil at the time, decides that they can no longer spy anymore. Like, this is taking too long. If they have a mole near Dalinar, it just got too real. And so Shallan takes over and tries to get out of them where Ialai actually is, so she can get in and stop them. um, there's a big debate between Shallan, Vale versus Radiant on whether or not they kill Ela, and how exactly they deal with the Lightweavers, because the Sons of Honor, because Vale just basically wants to kill them all. Radiant, on the other hand, they don't. At least Ela herself doesn't really pose a threat until they find out about this mole. So, and yeah.
Yep. Let's see. Then we get on to chapter 5. See, at the beginning of this chapter, the backups for the fused have arrived. So a bunch of heavenly ones show up, and so all the Windrunners start engaging the heavenly ones. And we learn that this past year, the heavenly ones and the Windrunners have been fighting each other in one-on-one combat, which shows that they actually have a good bit of honor to them, which kind of surprises me a little bit. But yeah, so Cal starts fighting with Leshwi, who seems to be kind of the head heavenly one, it seems. And
Leshwi, real quick, Leshwi was the one, I remember right, that like Moash killed, and then
yes, I believe so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So yeah, her and Cal start fighting. Nice little back and forth there. And Cal notes that although they don't have shard blades and they can't go quite as fast as the Windrunners, that the heavenly ones seem like I think he says something along the lines of they seem like they were born to the winds, where he's just claimed the winds. So yeah, they have a lot more practice. I mean, they've been doing this for like thousands of years. But yeah, so that was interesting to note.
Real quick, I just wanted to note, we're taking notes for this podcast, and I just wanted to show y'all we're doing it with talk to text, and so we get some really good gems in here. It obviously doesn't recognize Kaladin, and so this says Khalid and notes.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's a good one.
Anyway, sorry. Continue.
No, you're good. So yeah, let's see. What else is in that chapter? I guess it breaks away from the fight between all the Windrunners and stuff. So then we switch over to Shallan, and she's really trying to get in good with the Sons of Honor, trying to really sell it. And at one point, she thinks she's losing them, so she tells them that she is a spy for somebody else, spying on Dalinar. So she tries to use little leverage there, like, hey, you tell me who your guy on the inside is, I'll tell you who my guy is. Maybe we can work something out. She's
what I know.
Yeah,
wasn't she saying something about the flying platform that she knew how?
Yeah. She said that she had plans on it, and so she quickly grabs a sheet of paper out, and while they're not looking, she puts light weaving on the piece of paper and light weaves kind of what she can remember, because she apparently helped draw out the plans. She covertly puts a little light weaving on there, shows them, little bitty piece. They wouldn't gain anything out of it, but just proof, like, here, look, I actually have stuff to offer. And that seems to work. They seem to be going along with it. Yeah, I think that's just about it.
All right. And the last chapter we're going to talk about today, chapter 6. This first part is very interesting. And it's the intro again, where Navani is giving a lecture on Fabrials to the Coalition of Monarchs. And she states that Spren react differently to different types of metals. So that's interesting. I mean, I assume if you're reading this book, you've probably read at least some of the other Cosmere books. I won't spoil anything, but I mean, it's not really a spoiler because it's a main point that you find out within like 5 minutes of one of the other Cosmere books. But
fair, yeah.
Interesting that we find out that Spren actually are affected by metal because they're mostly like cognitive realm beings. Anyways, so Adolin shows up to rescue Shallan, but she willingly escapes with the Sons of Honor through a secret tunnel, and Shallan is taken to ELA. There's another good one, ELA, at her secret hideout in the Shattered Plains, and we learn that Vale is intended to kill ELA.
Keeler.
Don't kill her. So we switch back to Cal watching Sigzil fighting Leshwi, and Sig almost gets killed, but Cal convinces him to forfeit the fight, and Leshwi does the same. But the really cool thing to note here is that Leshwi actually allowed him to remove Sigzil from the fighting. So that's an important detail. And then her and Kaladin begin to fight their one-on-one. So then we switch over to Navani, who is watching Dalinar open the perpendicularity, and she hears a faint tone whenever this happens. She doesn't know what it is, but as soon as he opens the perpendicularity, she hears some sort of tone. And we see Rushu seeing a man on the hill away from the battle, and she's asking basically like, why is this one Windrunner just standing over here?
Yeah, I think she remarks that he's wearing a Bridge 4 uniform or something.
Yeah, and she's saying how she doesn't understand their battle tactics, and she's like, why is he just standing over there? And Navani finally looks at him. She just thinks that Rushu's being Rushu and getting distracted, but she sees him and realizes that it's fucking Moash.
Fucking Moash, man.
Fuck Moash.
For real.
And so then we switch back to Cal and Leshwi's fight, and they're both getting in good strikes at each other. Cal remarks that, you'd think that, Windrunners would have the edge in combat because they have shard weapons. He doesn't necessarily have shard plate now, but they have the shard blades or spears or whatever. And they have access to more powerful surges, I guess. Not really explained, but for whatever reason, their versions of the surges are stronger. And so you'd think that they would be, like more adept or have a better advantage. But then you think about the fused who have had millennia of lifetimes that they've lived and died and fought in. And so they, while you have the Windrunners who are these heavy axes that, are really powerful, the fused are like the katanas, basically. They are swift and really graceful. And so anyways, they're fighting each other. And then Cal sees that the new fused is attacking bystanders. And this pisses off Cal, obviously, but it also pisses off Leshwi. Because again, her heavenly ones, have honor. And so Leshwi indicates that Cal needs to go protect them, and she allows him to end the battle in a draw. Doesn't she drop her spear?
I don't know if she drops her spear, but maybe she holds it up.
Oh no, Cal drops his spear, and because it's Syl, it just
it vanishes. Yeah, and I think she holds hers up like in a posture indicating that it's a draw. So
right, okay. So yeah, that's the first 6 chapters. The recap of what happened. quite a bit has happened. We are learning some new stuff from from the first three books. We've already got some pretty interesting new information. And so now we're going to talk about our feelings.
Yay.
Okay. So, what's your feeling, Lars?
We're starting off hot,
feelings,
man. We're starting off hot. I really liked it. First read through, I couldn't believe we were already jumping into battle. First 5-6 chapters, like, oh wow, we're starting off fast. Yeah, I think it's going good. Gavilar is definitely a big old dick. He straight up tells Navani that she's worthless essentially, and sadly Navani kind of agrees. She doesn't really consider herself a scholar, which is kind of bullshit. I mean, sure, she may not be good with like the exact workings, the exact sciences of like how stuff would work, but she's a big picture woman. Like if it wasn't for her, who knows how long it would be before somebody had the idea to come up with a flying machine, like.
Well, that even I think is selling her short. Like, no, honestly, I think that's like her way of just internalizing the oppression that Gavilar has put upon her. You know what I mean? Like,
I know, yeah, it definitely. But I mean, I think she says it a couple times that she doesn't consider herself a scholar,
right, yeah.
Which like I said is bullshit.
Yeah,
but yeah, she deserves a little pat on the back. But yeah, let's see, and then and she also came up with the floating platform that kept the archers dry in the third book, helping them fight off the Parshendi and stuff. So yeah, she's got some things on her ledger, and I think she did like the heating fabrial. She was like a big thing in that, if I remember.
Yeah, I think she played down her role in that too, but she
probably did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then let's see, Lirin, also kind of a dick. Definitely not as big of a dick as Gavilar, but I mean, I know he's a pacifist and really despises any killing, but I mean, he very, very pointedly refers to Cal as death, saying that whenever Cal reveals himself at the end of chapter 1, that death has arrived in Hearthstone, which is a little harsh, man. I mean,
yeah,
your son's basically like not a god, but like superhero, like, and you're just gonna shit on him all the time. Like, I understand he's a pacifist and doesn't approve of what Cal's doing, but I think he's going just a tad bit overboard.
Right. Yeah. I find myself conflicted on Lirin because, and I almost feel like Brandon is a little bit too.
He might be.
It sort of reminds me of like the Wheel of Time. I don't know if you're. I know you're familiar with it, Lars, but
yeah,
dear listeners, I don't know if you're familiar with Wheel of Time. There were these group of people called the Tinkers. No, is that right? The Tinkers?
Yeah.
Well, I think
that's right. Yeah.
The Tinkers, and they follow the way of the leaf. They're pacifists, and the series does a lot of philosophizing over, like whether their way of life is sustainable whenever you're literally dealing with the personification of evil destroying the entire world. Like, how can you rectify your beliefs with the reality of what is happening? And I think Lirin sort of struggles in that same, exact way. And it almost feels like at times Brandon, whenever he's writing him, like he sympathizes with Lirin more, and then at other times he doesn't. And it's like, having a conversation back and forth. Which side is right?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's interesting that that conversation is even happening.
No, yeah, it's good. It's, it's definitely good to have, both perspectives in the book. And I get it, but just a little irritates me a little bit. Come on,
Yeah.
Larry.
Yeah,
He's
no,
a-
it definitely irritates me too. He's coming to literally save your town, and you're going to refer to him that way. That's annoying.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so what are your feelings, man?
So I think I've told you this before on my first read through of this book, but I really, really like the way that Brandon is treating mental illness in this
Yeah.
series.
Mm-hmm.
With Paladin and Shallan especially, it's good to see that he's not just like hand waving away like all the issues that they've gone through and the resulting psychology that or the resulting psychological illnesses that they have because they got magic powers. It's not just like poof, you're healed.
Yeah, he's
They
not
still have to work through those things.
yeah, they're not just magicked away because all of a sudden you're radiant. So
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And I mean, we sort of already got that, like I mean, we obviously already knew that in book 3 whenever Kaladin, I mean, he was already radiant and yet he was still suffering from those issues. But
Yeah.
it's every book it still sort of surprises me because I think a lesser author would try to do those things, and I've seen things like that in fantasy and in other literature.
yeah, for sure.
It's every single book he reinforces that no, just because these people are demigods, they're still human, where it counts in the mind.
Yeah, I think that's what really makes the characters that much more relatable. Is they have these human. I mean, I'm sure that's what every writer tries to do is keep their characters as human as possible, especially when you're dealing with superheroes. You got to humanize them somehow. But yeah, he does a real good job of it.
Yeah. And I think the reason why, because I guess every author wants to make their characters relatable or human, but like speaking as a person that has tried to write before, like obviously like you want that as an author because
Yeah,
but at the same time I guess you're like fighting against also the fact that you're trying to make your characters awesome because you're writing fantasy. You want people to wield big ass swords and have powers and just be awesome, but
yeah.
it's just the balancing act that that's really cool.
No, yeah, he pulls it off real well.
And yeah, the other thing, I'm just most of my feelings basically come down or boiling down to the point of just gushing over Brandon's writing and his storytelling. But it seems like romantically, his work is a lot more mature than a lot of other works. Like we find out that I guess Kaladin and Lynn, the Windrunner, had a relationship.
Yep, they didn't work out.
Yeah, but I mean, until then, the only no, I almost forgot about him and Shallan having the like little romantic thing.
They had a little flirt thing going on, yeah.
But
Back in what was that, book 2?
yeah, and then like book 3, and then he kind of figures out that he was just like in love with the idea of her.
Yeah.
Which again is another example of like the point I'm trying to make, which is that just because he's the main character, just because he's a super awesome person, doesn't necessarily mean that he quote unquote deserves to get the girl at the end of the day. I think that's sort of like an outdated trope. It's another one that I think Wheel of Time falls into, which again, I sound like I guess I said something good about Wheel of Time before, but now I'm saying something bad. I love Wheel of Time, and I think that Brandon pulls a lot inspiration from it. But yeah, I personally feel like Cal may not find anybody, or if he does, it's not going to at least not be written like it's some sort of reward for being this super awesome boy, you know?
Yeah. No, I touching on that a little bit. I feel like if Cal does get like a love interest, it'd be interesting. I think you suggested that like maybe it's Syl somehow.
Yeah,
Like that
yeah.
that would be real interesting. Or I think I threw out like, what if it's this Leshwi character? 'Cause
Yeah.
they seem to have like a lot of respect for each other, and in their little duel, I don't know. Maybe this is completely wrong, but it's almost a little bit like a flirtatious vibe, Like they're
No,
just
yeah,
kinda,
I completely agree. Yeah.
like their fight is kind of like in the schoolyard, chasing around that girl you like, and she's chasing you and kind of hitting you and giving you shit. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
I just kind of got that vibe. So yeah, that'd be real interesting. A little interspecies thing going on.
Yeah. I remember you saying that, and that's why I wrote it down, because on the second read, I was listening to it again, and I got the exact same vibe. I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah.
But I also sort of, the reason why I put out Syl is because I sort of got that vibe from book 3.
They were bonding, real good, and she was like, I don't know, just kind of coming more into being a human, or being more human-like,
Exactly, yeah, and that's, I guess, what it was. I guess this could just be me doing exactly what I'm saying Brandon shouldn't do, which is, just put him with the first female that he comes in contact with. But,
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. If it is going to be someone, I think it'd be cool if it were them, like, to show that the two species could intermingle and
little Romeo and Juliet type thing, star-crossed lovers.
They're gonna do the Avatar thing and have the hair sex.
So is that how the Parshendi did? All right,
I think so. That was always weird thing to me. Like, we got like a little blurb. I think it was like in one of the previous books, talking about. It was in the last book, actually. Whenever Cal gets kidnapped by the singers, I forget their names. Hin, I think, is one of them, and
I believe so. Yeah,
they're saying that his daughter or his wife got sold off after they mated, and they separated her from her daughter and everything. But like, I don't know where I was going with that. I don't know. I guess whenever I was first reading, I was like, how were they mating? I don't think it was mentioned until then that they even mated, like how they reproduced. But I guess that's whenever they mentioned it was in book 3.
I can't remember. I mean, they mentioned mate form, so they have to take a specific form to mate, I guess.
That's what it was. That's what it was. Yes.
But yeah. Okay. Yeah. So how were the regular like dull Parshmen mating not in mate form? Huh. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if like they're always able to mate, and it's just like they take mate form to make like better babies, or like to be like motivated to do it, like maybe
that's what it is, like
never
motivation.
motivated. That's interesting. I never really thought of that.
Okay, that's what it was. I just completely blanked on it, so thank you.
Yeah, I helped you there. You're welcome.
So did you have any other feelings, or
let's see. I can't remember. I think that's maybe in a later chapter, so I won't get into it. But I think maybe just to touch on it a little bit. The Sprin are like some of my favorite characters.
Of course,
Pattern and Syl. And so any little jab that Syl gives Kaladin, is great for me. Or the real awkwardness
mating.
from Pattern. Yeah. Back in book 3, whenever Pattern's like chaperoning Shallan and Adolin, and they're like, just make sure we don't do anything inappropriate. And then a couple minutes later, he's like, oh, you mean sex? Like, oh, God. Those are great. I love them. So, yeah. that's about it, I think.
Okay. I did have one other note, but I think I'm now. So, yeah, that's basically it for the spoiler-free section of the book. I mean, of the podcast. So, if you have not read the rest of this book, in other words, if you are where we are right now at chapter 6, and you will want to leave this podcast and come back after you finish the book.
Yes,
Okay.
we will be going into spoilers for not only this book but also the Cosmere. So
Yeah.
if you haven't read, let's see, I think the main book's probably going to be like
Warbreaker, Mistborn.
Warbreaker, Mistborn. That's about all.
That's
I've
basically
only
it,
read
yeah.
Mistborn. I haven't even read Warbreaker. But yeah, so if you don't want spoilers for those, then yeah, check out now, and you can come back whenever you've read those.
You can't see me right
Haven't.
now, but I'm shaking my head in disappointment at you.
I know Warbreaker's next, man. I mean, granted, we started this podcast now, so now we got to go back and do 1, 2, 3. But Warbreaker is on the list. I'm sorry.
Anyways, all right. So everybody left in here has read this book. This is totally first podcast, and you might be aware of that now.
I don't think you can tell me.
Okay.
Our notes have been spot on.
Okay. Well, thanks. I appreciate it. So this is a wholesome podcast. Okay. The
Very
implications for the rest of this book. First off, I wanted to touch on something. You might be looking at our good old logo right here, and you might be wondering, what's this going on up here? What's all that about? That, if you're not familiar with it, some of you will be, is the women's script. Okay?
That was something I didn't know.
And it's the the Alethi women's script. Now, if you've ever seen any kind of audio recording, let's see if I can pull up a picture of it. You might notice a faint similarity. This one is even better. Oh, that one's moving.
They look kind of similar.
They look very similar. In the chapter where Dalinar opens up the perpendicularity and Navani hears the tone, this is the first time that it's mentioned. But later on, obviously, in the rest of this book, since we're all on the same page here, you'll know that the light, the different forms of light, the storm light, void light, tower light, anti-void light, all that good stuff, they are all sort of connected somehow to sound, to some tone. And it's interesting because, well, first of all, what is that connection? Why is that there? I have a feeling it has something to do with physics of light itself, and that, it's a particle and a wave. And although it's a completely different type of wave than sound, they're both still waves. And I think, Brandon's trying to draw some connection there.
Yeah.
But more interestingly, though, is this women's script, is that just a total coincidence? Or did the ancient Alethi, or whoever created this, even maybe before them, did they know that? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but the fused, did they know that light was... Oh yeah, I guess they did. No, because the Thalens actually knew that, and they knew that they could draw the stormlight out by a tuning fork. And
yeah, and they sing to the plants to get them to accept stormlight instead of sunlight, right?
Right. Okay.
We find that out a little later in the book. So yeah, I think they knew that sound had a big play in it.
So I guess it's just interesting then that knowledge has gotten somehow lost, or
Lost
Because
in time.
sorry, because Thalen and Alethkar are both foreign cities, but I don't know. I guess one of them forgot what it meant, and the other one remembered this, or maybe they still don't know that their writing looks a hell of a lot like a sound wave does.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting, and I'd be interested to see where that connection between light and sound takes us, whether it's important at all, or like the meaning behind it is important, or if it's just some connection that we have now.
Yeah. And let's see. I think we stopped because I kept taking notes up to like chapter 10. We didn't get into the specific metals yet, right? In the little chapter intros. It was just like, I think the last intro was that different metals affect Spren differently, right?
Hang on.
I think that's right. Let's see. Chapter 6. Yeah, the chapter 6 is that Spren respond differently to different types of metal.
Okay.
So yeah, I think chapter 7 is maybe where we start to go into the different types of metal. So I'll leave that off. But yeah, with this flying machine, you know, the world opens up, man.
Yeah, it's completely changing the landscape for how wars are going to be fought now. That's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And if I mean, I think we know since we're in the spoiler that Rabaniel gets her hands on Navani's sketches for it. So, like, I don't think we know at the end of the book if this gets into the hands of the fused. But yeah, so we potentially have some potential for like
her flying machine. Yeah,
flying machine. Yeah, so we have some potential there for little sky battles. Potential enemies getting this flying machine now. So wars could start to look crazy, man.
Yeah, because that was one of the things. Is I mean, even the heralds, it's noted that they didn't even know.
Yeah, they were
about
amazed
this type
by
of
it.
stuff. Yeah, they were.
Which is crazy to think. Everybody just assumed that the heralds like, oh, they must have crazy technology. And like, wait a minute,
Yeah,
y'all are behind on that one. Like, oh shit,
just Spren basically doing all the work for them. Well, not the heralds, I guess, but for the Radiance. But yeah.
Yeah, pretty crazy, man.
Like how did they make this crazy armor? Oh, it was just a bunch of Spren.
It's all magic. Yeah.
So actually, that was one of my the metals thing was going to be one of my connections that I was going to make. But I guess we can go ahead and start talking about it now because we are getting into the spoilers for the rest of the book. But
yeah, I mean, we could, but we technically haven't gotten. We save it for next time. But if you wanna start, we can always revisit it next episode.
Well, I won't get into the specifics of what each metal does, except for one, because they've already mentioned one. I know that for a fact.
They did? Okay. All right.
So whenever Cal is fighting Leshwi, he notes that her spear has something at the end of it that blocks his shard blade from being able to cut through it.
Okay. I think I do remember that, yeah.
And that thing is aluminum, I believe.
Is it aluminum? Okay,
I don't think they explicitly state it, but I'm almost positive that's what it is. That's what they were using in Kholinar in Book 3 to block the Spren from being able to see them using the Soulcasters. Remember?
Oh, it's what I forget her name now.
Is Azure?
Azure. Yeah, it's what Azure had that room coded in.
Yeah.
So that yeah.
And that was something that Wit had told her about, actually.
That's right. Yeah.
Um. So, anyways, so it's interesting because we've already seen that aluminum blocks stormlight, and we already knew that from book 3, I guess, but we're getting more of it.
Yeah, it can be put on weapons and block shard blade and stuff.
But so the interesting thing to me is that investiture is, unless you can find a way to make it portable, it's usually like stuck to the world that its shard was created on. So
yeah.
Stormlight is sort of stuck on Roshar, and actually Raboniel later even says that she can't go to another world because she's stuck there by being such a highly invested being.
Yeah, she's tied to this world.
And so why then would metal necessarily block stormlight? Because in Mistborn is like, the metal in Mistborn is like the material in which investiture.
It's the one where if you consume it, it like drains all of it.
Yeah,
right?
But it's like the metal isn't really. It doesn't contain the investiture. It like, if I remember correctly, it allows you to like focus it. It's like within yourself.
Activates it almost. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's tied specifically to ruin and preservation. No. Preservation. Jesus. Preservation's power. That's tied to their shard. So then why would aluminum that ostensibly comes from Roshar have any effect on Stormlight or Voidlight? That's an interesting. Yeah. Or, the other metals that are apparently affecting Sprin there. Like, there's got to be some connection on how that is able to work.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it's just cool that something from Mistborn is in Stormlight and like works in a very similar fashion. Like that's just a cool universe building thing.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, it is interesting that it would work the same way because like you're saying, preservation and ruin aren't in Scadrial. They have no connection to to Roshar, excuse me. So yeah, I don't know exactly what's going on there. But it sure is interesting.
Well, I'm getting so deep into the mechanics of it because I know that Brandon, the way he writes his magic systems, they're so heavily detailed that he has an explanation for it. And for sure. I'd love to know what that is. Because I think those little connections are going to be the things that sort of bring these worlds closer together. And at the end of the day, we have Stormlight and Mistborn, but I think the Cosmere as a whole, we have Stormlight and Mistborn as separate stories. That's what I was trying to say. But the Cosmere as a whole, I think, is building towards some larger story at the end. Like, sort of like, these are the Avengers movies, and we're building towards... these are like the Captain America, Iron Man movies, and we're building towards the Avengers. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that there's necessarily one series at the end that's going to tie everything in together, or if it's just going to sort of be wrapped up individually in their own, but I think it is leading somewhere that connects
that would be interesting, man. Yeah, like a big Infinity War book,
something like that.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. Maybe that'll be the Wit book. Didn't you say that he said he's going to do like a wit series. You know, maybe that'll be the one that ties everything together.
He actually already has done one.
Oh, really?
It's called Dragonsteel. For
Oh,
those
that's
of
the
you who don't
wit
know.
one. Okay, that would include me apparently.
Well, because we are audiobook listeners, and I'm just the type of nerd that goes into long rabbit holes on the Coppermind wiki. But Dragonsteel is the book that is set on Yolen, which is the first planet. Or maybe not the first planet, but at least the first human inhabited the civilization planet.
Yeah.
And that's where wit comes from. That's so yeah. And I believe that's, if I remember correctly, that's where Adonalsium was actually split. All the people that are now shards, except for what's his name? Harmony.
Sazed?
Sazed. Except for Sazed, all of them, I believe, are from Yolen. So, anyways, the book is already out, or at least a version of the book is already out. There's no audiobook for it or anything, but
I think it says Dragonsteel refers to an unpublished series, but then Dragonsteel Prime is the 7th novel and was written as a part of his master's thesis.
Okay. So I haven't read this. I will go ahead and say that. I just know that it exists. And yeah, maybe it's just that one novel, but I know you can read online something of Dragonsteel. But
Gotcha.
I think he is going to go back and do this. It's just not like a sequel series, it's a prequel.
Yeah. Prequel series,
Yeah. So, do you have any other connections that you wanted to? Actually, I think I was just kind of talking mostly.
I don't think so. I made some notes on like the specific metals and, you know, kind of connections. But yeah, that, like I said, that's kind of the next couple chapters, I believe.
They're all about like the metals and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, probably basically because I've only read Mistborn, you know. So yeah, those are the connections that I'm making. But yeah, other than that, I don't think I've seen anything. I think there's stuff later in the book that I've recognized, you know. But,
yeah.
But yeah, for these first 5 chapters, I don't have a lot of connections to make.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm trying to think. Most of the connections, I think, are Mistborn or Warbreaker. But yeah, you're right, though. Yeah. In the later chapters, there are going to be some other ones. One really important one, which, again, we won't talk about it today, but obviously if you're here and listening to this, then you already know what I'm talking about. It involves sand. But
oh yeah, you explained that to me.
So, you might be wondering why we have so many notes on metals and the next couple chapters, and that's because we are extremely organized and we're getting ready for the next podcast, and not because we planned initially on doing 10 chapters instead of 6. And we changed it at the last minute. That's definitely not what happened.
Yeah, not at all.
But
totally professional over here.
All right. Well, hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll probably try to have the next one out next week. Again, this is all new, so we're trying to get everything together. Even though we're super professional, you know, there could be some delay, but we'll get it out to you as soon as we can. It should be within the next week. So until next time, we will see y'all later.
See ya.